This video introduces how to create an entity relationship diagram using Microsoft Visio 2007. Once Microsoft Visio is open, select the Software and Database template category, then double-click on the database model diagram. Next, we need to set some options to help our diagram look the way we want it, with crow's foot notation and the ability to create many-to-many relationships. First of all, we're going to select the database menu from the menu bar, then select options, then document. We will check the option to show crow's feet notation, then click OK. The next option we want to change is in the Tools menu in the Options area. Then we click the Advanced tab and select the option to run in developer mode so that it is checked. Then click OK, and now we are ready to create our entity relationship diagram. You may also want to change the zoom so that you can see more of the page. To add an entity to your page, select the entity shape in your Shapes task pane. Then drag the entity shape onto your page. The next thing you want to do is give the shape a name. In the Categories area, select Definitions, then change the physical name of the entity to whatever you want the table to be called. For instance, if we want to create a table named Employees, we would simply type in Employees. Then we need to add fields to our entity, so we're going to select the Columns category and begin entering in our field names. An employee would likely be identified by an employee ID. We can then select this column as our primary key field. Once that column is selected as the primary key, it is also marked in the table with a PK, and the field is listed at the top of the table. Next, we can add additional columns or fields to our table, such as first name and last name and hire date. We can also change the data type of our fields to match the type of data that will be stored in the database. Hire date would be a date time field. Then, if we have different types of employees in our organization, we may need to create subtypes for this relationship. So let's create another entity on our page, and we can give this a physical name of salaried employees. Salaried employees, because it is a subtype of our employees entity, it will maintain the same characteristics as our employees table. So we will give a column primary key field of employee ID and mark that as our primary key field. Next, salaried employees also receive an annual salary that we want to track. And finally, they could receive benefits, which we will just list as benefit ID. Another type of employee we may want to track is hourly employees, so we can draw another entity shape onto our page and name it hourly employees, and identify the columns as employee ID, which would be our primary key, and hourly rate. We would also want to change the data type of hourly rate to currency, And if we wanted to change our annual salary and salaried employees, we could go back and do that as well by selecting the entity and then changing the annual salary column data type to currency. The next thing we want to do after we have added our entities to our page is we need to create our connections between our employees supertype and the salaried employee subtype. To do that, we will go over to our Shapes area and select the Parent to Category shape and drag it onto our page. Notice both ends of this connector are green. We can take the top end and drag it directly over the middle of our employees entity so that it turns red. Then we can move the other green side of the line so that it is over our salaried employees entity. Next, we need to select a category shape and drag it onto our page. Then we can drag our category shape over to the end of our original connector line from our employees entity. Next, we need to connect our category shape to the salaried employees subtype. To do that, we will select the category to child shape and drag it over on our page. We want to make sure the one green side is connected to our category shape and the other green side is dragged over to the middle of our salary employed subtype entity so that both ends are connected and are red when it's selected. Now we can do the same thing to connect our employee supertype to our hourly employee subtype. However, we do not need to select and create another category shape. We can simply drag another category to child shape onto our page and connect the existing category with our hourly employees. Now we have our employees entity connected to both our salaried employee subtype and our hourly employees subtype. Next, let's take a look at how we can create an entity and relate it to our employees table. For instance, each employee will work in a particular department, and each department will have many employees. So let's create a department entity by dragging the entity shape onto our page and changing our definition category to departments to name our entity. Then we can create columns for our departments table and have a primary key field of department ID, and then every department will also have a department name. Next, we can join our department entities with our employees entity. To do this, we would create or drag a relationship shape onto our page, and notice the relationship shape has two sides. One side looks like a crow's foot because we changed our database modeling, and this is our mini side. The other side has two straight lines. That is our one side. Because each employee will work in only one department, the one side should be connected to the department's entity, and each department will have many employees. So we will drag the mini side over to our employees entity. Now we can see the relationship between departments and employees.